Welcome to this segment of Auto News Talk. When you walk into a dealership and you see those rows of pristine, gleaming vehicles, it feels permanent, right?
Absolutely, yeah, very solid.
Yeah, feels incredibly solid. But that gleaming car sitting on the asphalt it's actually the result of this incredibly fragile, invisible ecosystem. One where an earthquake on the other side of the globe, or like a single factory fire in New York, or even just a rushed conversation in a dealership back office can instantly dictate whether you can even buy that car.
Right, and exactly what you'll be forced to pay for it, too.
Exactly.
It really is a high-wire act. We
Yeah.
tend to view the automotive industry as this, unstoppable juggernaut of heavy metal and machinery.
Yeah, totally.
But behind the scenes, it operates with a level of sensitivity that it would make a watchmaker nervous.
I want to start right there, actually, with the mechanics of how these vehicles get built, because the manufacturing supply chain is, it's just fascinating.
Oh, it really is.
For decades, the industry has worshipped at the altar of just-in-time manufacturing. And I've always heard it described as this beautiful, hyper-efficient ballet.
Sure, yeah.
But looking at the landscape, it feels more like a trapeze act without a net.
That is the perfect analogy.
Yeah.
Just in time is a beautiful ballet right up until, the catcher's car breaks down on the way to the circus.
Right.
If the catcher isn't there, the flyer just plummets. There is absolutely no buffer.
Oh, yeah.
And we have a really stark reminder of that in a report from Automotive News. It details how an earthquake in Japan has completely upended Toyota's Lexus production.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, the central insight from this reporting is that despite years of corporate promises about building supply chain resilience, global manufacturing remains staggeringly vulnerable to localized physical disruptions.
Hold on, I have to push back on that right out of the gate. We're talking about Toyota here.
I know.
They literally invented the Toyota production system. They are the godfathers of just-in-time manufacturing.
Right.
You're telling me that Toyota, of all companies, is still getting caught flat-footed by an earthquake in their own backyard?
It sounds totally counterintuitive, but yes. And the report lays out exactly why. First, this production pause was extended far longer than Toyota initially projected.
Meaning what, exactly?
Meaning it's impacting thousands of vehicles. But the core issue is that Lexus is uniquely vulnerable compared to Toyota's mass-market brands.
Oh, because they're built differently.
Yeah, Lexus relies on a much narrower, highly concentrated group of domestic Japanese plants to maintain their specific quality standards.
Ah, I see.
And because Japanese automakers operate with incredibly dense, highly synchronized logistics, they run with almost zero excess inventory.
So there's no backup parts just sitting in a warehouse somewhere.
Exactly. They have stripped the system of all its shock absorbers to save money.
So the efficiency is actually the vulnerability.
Precisely. There's a deeply memorable detail in Hans Greimel's reporting on this, actually. He points directly back to the lasting scars of the 2011 earthquake and tsunami in northeastern Japan.
Wow. Okay.
That catastrophe was supposed to be the ultimate wake-up call. It was the defining example of how localized disasters throttle global output.
Because I remember you couldn't get cars for months after that.
Right. And the industry swore they would build more buffers, but, the financial pressure to stay lean eventually overruled the fear of the next disaster.
That is wild. So if you are someone who has been saving up and is shopping for a Lexus SUV, what are the mechanics of this? Does a factory stopping in Japan mean the local lot is empty tomorrow?
No, it's a delayed shockwave. A lost vehicle on a Japanese assembly line takes weeks to actually ripple through the shipping channels and appear as a missing vehicle in retail supply.
Okay, so it takes a minute.
Yeah, that means dealers across the globe are going to feel this squeeze, and buyers will face tighter inventory long after the ground has actually stopped shaking.
But reading through that specific report, there is a massive operational blind spot, isn't there?
Oh, totally.
What this report doesn't answer is exactly which Lexus plants or specific models are affected. If you are a dealer trying to manage your future allocations, or like a buyer waiting on a custom order, you are essentially flying blind. You know the shockwave is coming, you just don't know if it's going to hit your specific car.
It is a massive information vacuum.
Let's bring this closer to home, though, because I don't want to make it sound like this is just an import problem.
Oh, it definitely isn't.
You might think, just build the cars in America, source everything locally, and you don't have to worry about ships and global logistics.
Right, the whole reshoring idea.
Yeah, exactly. But that doesn't fix the trapeze act. We can see the exact same fragility in an earnings preview report on Ford.
Absolutely. The stakes in this Ford preview are just astronomical. To give you a sense of the scale, analysts are expecting automotive revenue of $45.86 billion
That is a staggering number.
and adjusted earnings of 35 cents per share.
Wait, really quickly, when we say adjusted earnings or adjusted EBIT, what exactly are we measuring? Let's drop the finance jargon for a second.
Fair point, yeah. Adjusted EBIT stands for earnings before interest and taxes. Think of it as the core operating profit of the company, just stripping out all the accounting noise and one-time expenses.
Okay, got it.
Ford's multi-year guidance is targeting a massive $8.5 billion to $10.5 billion in that core profit.
Okay, so $10 billion in core profit.
Yeah.
But here is the central insight of this report, and it is almost absurd to me.
Yeah.
Ford's massive corporate empire is hanging by a thread. And that thread is the supply of a single raw material for one specific vehicle line.
The F-Series trucks.
Yes.
It always comes back to the F-Series, is the financial engine of the entire company. But production of that crown jewel has been severely constrained.
And yet they still got upgraded.
Yeah, even with those constraints, the report notes a fascinating detail. The firm Jefferies actually upgraded Ford and GM shares to a buy rating.
Interesting.
They're anticipating a rebound and suggesting they might have finally hit a low point for volume.
But let's look at why that volume was constrained in the first place. This is the detail that completely blew my mind.
Go for it.
The entire F-Series supply chain was bottlenecked because of a single aluminum supplier, Novelis, experiencing 2 fires at a facility in New York,
Yep.
2 localized fires at one supplier's plant, and the most profitable vehicle in America grinds to a halt. How does that even happen? Ford is a global behemoth. Can't they just buy aluminum from someone else?
You would think so. But this goes back to the mechanics of modern manufacturing. When Ford made the massive gamble to switch the F-150 to a military-grade aluminum body to save weight, they inextricably linked their highest volume product to highly specialized aluminum rolling mills.
Oh, so it's not just off-the-shelf metal.
Exactly. You can't just buy that specific grade of stamped aluminum on the open market. It requires custom tooling, specific alloys, and massive scale.
Wow.
So when that one facility in New York goes down, the trapeze flyer misses the catcher. There is no backup net.
So all of management's grand plans, all those billion-dollar profit targets we just talked about, literally depend on the fire suppression system at a third-party plant in New York.
That is the harsh reality.
Yeah.
How management handles these hyper-specific costs and supply bottlenecks will be the ultimate proof of whether they can actually hit those multi-year target numbers.
But again, there's a limitation in the data here. The supplier reportedly restarted production, but what this earnings preview doesn't answer is whether Ford's supply problems are permanently resolved or if they've just been temporarily patched.
Right.
Are they actually fixing the vulnerability or just crossing their fingers until the next fire?
That is the multi-billion-dollar question that analysts are waiting on.
Okay, so that's the brutal reality of trying to build the cars. It is a logistical nightmare.
Definitely.
But that naturally leads to the next piece of the puzzle. When automakers do have the supplies they need, when the factories are actually humming, what are they choosing to build? Where are they placing their biggest bets?
To understand that, we could look at a piece of analysis on Audi's launch of their massive new Q9 flagship SUV.
The Q9, right?
The central insight here reveals a massive industry-wide shift. Automakers are aggressively pivoting away from electric vehicles and rushing back to massive, high-margin internal combustion engine vehicles to stabilize their profits.
The gas-guzzling behemoths are officially back.
They are, and the Q9 is the poster child for this strategy. The article breaks down the mechanics of this launch. The Q9 is explicitly designed for U.S. buyers who are demanding 2 very specific things: cavernous space and high-end tech.
Which Americans love.
Exactly. It is meant to compete directly head-to-head with massive luxury land yachts like the Mercedes-Benz GLS and the BMW X7.
Oh, big-time competitors.
And the timing is not an accident. This launch is a desperate, calculated effort to regain momentum in the U.S. market after Audi suffered a brutal sales drop of 16% one year, followed by another 17% drop in the subsequent half-year period.
Those are terrifying numbers for a legacy luxury brand.
Truly terrifying.
So their answer to a 30% slide is just brute force. I was looking at the specs in this analysis, and they are wild. The standard model features a 2.9-liter V6 with 429 horsepower.
Which is plenty of power.
But this SQ9 variant, That packs a 4.0-liter V8 that launches this massive tank to 60 miles per hour in 3.8 seconds.
It's basically a supercar wrapped in an SUV.
And they paired that massive old-school combustion engine with a ChatGPT-powered voice assistant.
Yeah, the juxtaposition of a massive V8 and generative AI is it's certainly something.
It feels like they're just throwing every possible buzzword and mechanical flex at the wall, and the price tag reflects it.
Yeah.
Starting at $89,095 and scaling all the way up to an eye-watering $119,395.
But those specs and that price tag explain the entire why behind the business strategy. Audi, like almost every other legacy automaker, heavily overinvested in electric vehicles.
Right, they went all in.
They assumed the adoption curve was going to look like the iPhone. But consumer demand for EVs grew much, much slower than expected, and the profit margins on them are terrible.
Yeah, they're losing money on them.
Exactly. Audi desperately needs a high-margin product to save their bottom line. A $120,000 gas-powered SUV is essentially an ATM machine for an automaker.
So they are funding their future electric dreams by selling the biggest gas engines they can build. But there is a massive strategic hole in this plan, isn't there?
There is. And it brings us right back to the supply chain vulnerabilities.
Okay, how so?
What this analysis doesn't answer is how Audi plans to overcome the massive disadvantage of not manufacturing these specific vehicles in the United States. By building them overseas and importing them, Audi is wildly exposed to import tariffs in a way that their direct German rivals who have spent billions building domestic plants in the U.S. simply aren't.
So they designed the perfect high-margin cash cow specifically for the American consumer, but they might get completely crushed by taxes just trying to get it off the boat.
Exactly. It is a massive geopolitical gamble.
Which brings us directly to the listener. If you have been car shopping, you have probably felt that visceral knot-in-your-stomach panic.
Oh, for sure.
That feeling of, if I don't buy this car right this second, the price is going to jump $500 by tomorrow morning. How do these global supply fires and corporate pivots actually hit the average person's wallet?
Well, there is finally some good news on that front. We have a robust data report from the Carfax Index, and their central insight is clear. Used vehicle prices are finally stabilizing after a brutal, prolonged run-up in the market.
So the panic is finally over.
The data strongly suggests that. The report paints a very clear mechanical picture of the market cooling down. Prices only rose 0.1% in the latest month tracked.
0.1%.
Yeah, to put that in human terms, that is about a $50 national increase. You have to compare that to the massive panic-inducing jumps of $350 and then $900 that we saw in previous months.
Wow, so $50 is basically flatlining. It's statistical noise.
Exactly. The rolling 7-day median for used vehicles is now sitting at $25,800.
Which is still a lot.
It is, but compare that to the $44,500 average for a brand new vehicle, and you see why the used market has been under so much pressure. Interestingly, the data shows that van and minivan prices actually declined slightly, while EV and hybrid prices remained completely flat.
My favorite part of this Carfax report was a quote from their editor-in-chief, Patrick Olson. He described the market as finally catching its breath.
Yes.
It is such a human way to describe billions of dollars of economic data. It perfectly captures that sheer exhaustion buyers have felt.
It really does. And the reason this data matters so much isn't just about the $50. It's about the mechanics of consumer psychology.
How so?
This stabilization gives buyers the ultimate luxury, the gift of time. When prices are spiking month over month, shoppers operate under a panic-inducing artificial scarcity. Now, the fever has broken. A shopper can finally step back, compare makes, cross-shop different models, and negotiate without feeling like they're going to lose their shirt if they walk off the lot to think about it.
But I have to play devil's advocate here. We have to look at the limitations of index data.
Always.
Because what this report absolutely doesn't answer is the one question every buyer actually cares about. Will prices actually start going down?
Exactly.
Flatlining is nice, but it's flatlining at historic highs. Plus, a national average of $25,000 might mean absolutely nothing in your specific zip code. If you live in a market where trucks are in high demand and short supply, you aren't feeling that national cooldown.
That is a critical limitation. National data is a compass.
Right.
It tells you the general direction of the wind, but it is not a street map of your neighborhood dealership.
Right. And speaking of the neighborhood dealership, let's talk about the final stage of this ecosystem. Let's say everything goes miraculously well. Toyota figures out its earthquake buffers, Ford's aluminum plant stays fire-free, Audi navigates the tariffs, and you get a stable, fair price on the lot. You drive away happy.
A perfect scenario.
Right. But the entire ecosystem can still completely fail down the road, right in the service lane.
This is perhaps the most overlooked yet vital part of the entire automotive industry. We have a piece of thought leadership featuring nation-safe drivers that dives deep into this operational reality.
Okay, what's their take?
The central insight here is about the mechanics of relationships. The erosion of trust between a dealership and its partners, whether that's service providers, warranty companies, or F&I partners, rarely happens with explosive, dramatic arguments.
Right. Yeah.
It happens through the slow, quiet accumulation of operational inconsistencies.
Before we go further, let's clarify F&I for the listener.
Of course, F&I stands for finance and insurance. It's the back office at the dealership where you actually sign the final paperwork, secure your loan, and buy things like extended warranties or tire protection plans.
It's a gauntlet.
Exactly, the gauntlet. And the nation-safe drivers piece outlines the major warning signs that trust in that gauntlet is breaking down. First, they point to inconsistent customer outcomes.
Meaning what?
That is when two different customers come in with the exact same mechanical issue, but receive two completely different decisions on what is covered.
Oh, that's incredibly frustrating.
It is. And the second sign is a phenomenon they call training drift.
What does training drift actually look like in practice?
It's the service advisor who is totally overwhelmed on a Tuesday morning. So instead of walking the customer through the multi-point inspection and the warranty claim process like they were formally trained to do, they just take a shortcut.
Just skip the process.
Yeah, they hand over the keys and say, looks fine, sign here. The customer feels processed rather than protected. Over time, the staff completely abandons the approved processes.
Wow.
And the third warning sign is highly transactional behavior between the dealership and their vendors, which completely ruins any chance for long-term collaboration.
And here is the brutal reality for the dealership they own, the customer relationship.
Yes, 100%.
If a third-party warranty company denies a claim or the process is a nightmare, the customer doesn't blame the anonymous warranty company. They blame the name on the front of the dealership building.
Always. The dealership absorbs all the reputational damage. There is a philosophy highlighted in the piece from Jeff Weiner, the COO of Nation-Safe Drivers, that gets right to the heart of this.
What does he argue?
He argues that true partnerships require continuous coaching and a fundamental belief in mutual long-term value, rather than just trying to extract short-term pricing concessions from each other. He explicitly points out that focusing on speed and efficiency alone does not equal trust.
Speed alone does not equal trust. I love that. In an industry obsessed with moving units fast, that is a radical statement. Why is that distinction so critical operationally?
Because we often treat trust as this, soft cultural buzzword for a corporate brochure.
Right, like team building.
Yeah. But this report proves it is a hard, measurable operational factor. The level of trust directly dictates claims, cycle times, how fast a car gets fixed and returned.
That makes sense.
It dictates customer retention. It directly impacts the cost per transaction.
Right.
When trust breaks down, the operational machine gets sludgy and it gets wildly expensive.
But there is a missing piece here. The philosophy is completely sound, but what this piece doesn't answer is the exact quantifiable dollar amount a dealership bleeds when this trust erosion actively occurs.
That's true.
It is incredibly hard to convince a dealer principal to invest in continuous coaching if you can't show them exactly how much money the training drift is costing them.
That is the perpetual challenge. It's notoriously difficult to quantify lost trust on a balance sheet right up until the moment the customer simply never comes back. By then, it's too late.
All right, let's pull all of this together. We have mapped out the entire invisible machinery, from the factory floor to the service bay.
And looking across all these different sources, three very distinct themes emerge. First, we have the domino effect of operations. We saw this clearly supported by the disruptions from Toyota's earthquake and Ford's supplier fires. It proves that no matter how big the company is, the Trapeze Act is incredibly vulnerable to a single point of failure.
The second theme is the harsh reality of consumer demand. We see this supported by Audi's aggressive, almost desperate pivot back to giant VA SUVs because EV demand softened.
Yep.
And that pairs directly with Carfax's data showing that buyers are utterly exhausted by artificial scarcity and price spikes. Consumers want what they want, big space, big engines, and they want the market to stop hyperventilating so they can buy them in peace.
Exactly. And the third theme is the importance of the final mile. This is perfectly supported by the Nation Safe Drivers piece.
Right, the dealership experience.
Yeah, you can engineer a brilliant aluminum truck or a tech-heavy luxury SUV, but maintaining strict operational trust in the F&I office and the service lane is the only thing that actually keeps the customer coming back for their next vehicle.
But looking at all of this, there are massive tensions and contradictions hiding in these strategies. Let's talk about the no safe harbor paradox.
Oh, this is a big one.
Look at Audi. They are leaving themselves incredibly vulnerable by relying entirely on importing vehicles and exposing themselves to massive tariffs. So you think, well, the smart move is Ford.
Right, build it at home.
Yeah, Ford relies heavily on domestic, localized supply chains, but they still got completely crippled by a small fire in a New York aluminum plant.
It is a profound contradiction. The industry spent the last 20 years believing that globalization was the ultimate risk, so the push was to localize.
But extreme localization has its own brutal bottlenecks.
Exactly. If you put all your aluminum eggs in one New York basket, you are just trading geopolitical risk for fire hazard risk. There truly is no perfect, safe supply chain.
And the second tension is happening right inside the dealership. There is constant friction between dealerships wanting to force short-term cost reductions out of their F&I partners to hit monthly numbers, fighting against the desperate need to invest in that long-term, slow-build customer trust we talked about.
Yeah, you can't have both.
You can't squeeze a vendor for every last penny and expect them to deliver premium, seamless service to your buyer.
It's the classic battle between the quarterly spreadsheet and long-term brand loyalty. And if I had to synthesize all of this down to one practical takeaway for the listener, it would be this: in an ecosystem this fragile, consistency is the ultimate automotive currency.
Consistency. Not speed, not horsepower.
Right. Whether it's specialized aluminum reliably arriving at a factory without catching fire, used car price trends finally stabilizing for a weary shopper, or a customer getting a straight, consistent answer in a dealership service lane, stability is what wins. The companies that can provide a stable, consistent experience in a world of trapeze acts and tariff wars are the ones that are going to survive.
That is perfectly said. Well, that wraps up our journey through the invisible ecosystem of the auto industry. Thank you so much for tuning into this segment of Auto News Talk. In an industry utterly obsessed with billion-dollar strategies, artificial intelligence, and the vehicles of tomorrow, success still comes down to the smallest, most human links in the chain holding it all together. Next time you're on a lot, look past the shiny sheet metal and ask yourself, how resilient is the hidden machinery and the partnerships backing up that badge?